Hi, this is Robbie with Tickner Photography. Today I wanted to talk a little bit more about macro extension tubes and various different lenses. So I want to conduct a test. I have three macro extension tubes, a 13mm, 20mm, and a 36mm, adding up to 69mm. So for this demonstration, I'm going to keep all of these together and use all 69mm, my maximum macro extension. And then we're going to try the same shot with various different lenses that I have. So one thing to note about macro extension tubes is you do lose light. The bigger the extension tube, the less light. And I believe this is a factor of f-stop. F-stop is a ratio between the size of your aperture and your lens's millimeter from the sensor. So as the macro extension tube is pushing the lens away from the sensor, your effective f-stop ratio is getting larger, so you're losing light. I have a formula to figure out, but I don't know exactly how much light we're going to be losing, probably at least a stop for each one of these with 69mm of lens. So let's get started. I'm going to use my 100mm macro as the baseline for all of these other lenses. So first I'm going to shoot with a 100mm macro, 1:1, then I'm going to add the macro extension tubes, and then we're going to switch lenses. We'll use a Zeiss 24-70 at 70. We'll use a Tamron 70-200 2.8 at 200mm, so it's maximum zoom with the extension tubes. We'll use a 50mm 1.4, and we'll see what they all look like. So let's give this a shot, starting with the 100mm. Alright, so there you can see our baseline shot with a 100mm macro at 1:1. We'll add our extension tubes and see what changes. Alright, and there's macro extension tubes with a 100mm macro. I've also had to increase the aperture size. Without the extension tubes, I was shooting at f13. With the extension tubes, I'm shooting at f9 to maintain the same exposure. So now we'll switch to the Zeiss 24-70. So as you can see with the Zeiss 24-70 at 70mm, it's by no means a macro lens, but we're at minimum focus distance of 0.34 of a meter. So now let's add the extension tubes and see how much closer we can get. Okay, oddly enough, the Zeiss 24-70 is having a problem with these macro extension tubes. The internal motor keeps making a funny sound, and the f-stop marker on the back of the camera is just blank. So it's not recognized. So that's good to know with macro extension tubes. I'm going to try a different lens. We'll try the 70-200 2.8 right now. A lot further away with the 70-200, magnification looks similar to the Zeiss. So now I'm going to try to use the extension tubes. This is going to be a little bit funky just because this is such a heavy lens. Alright, so at 200mm at minimum focus distance with the macro extension tubes, the magnification increased substantially with the 24-70. It seems to be very close to the macro lens at 1:1 magnification. So now we'll try a 50mm prime and see what that looks like. Alright, there's a shot with 50mm prime without extension tubes. Let's add the tubes and see what changes. Okay, so the difference in magnification on the 50mm lens is actually pretty remarkable. It's typically the close focus point on this lens is 1.5 feet, so quite a ways away. With 69mm of macro extension tubes, the pennies are right at the edge of the lens hood, so probably an inch and a half away from the front element. So the change has been substantial, and as you can see, the magnification change is also remarkable. So just to recap, here's the picture set from what we just tested. Here's the 100mm macro lens before and after extension tubes. We have the 70-200 2.8 before and after extension tubes, and we have a 50mm 1.4 before and after extension tubes. So I hope you found this somewhat useful. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Otherwise, like and subscribe. Thank you. Bye.